on News Talk.
Wednesday night rugby on Off the Ball.
It's spinning! It's spinning! Jonathan Sexton has made it!
Do you feel moderately happy?
No, I feel like I've been kissing my sister, I suppose.
In the pocket for his drop goal attempt. Here he goes, O'Connor. He's done it! That surely is the Grand Slam.
We target players all the time. That's part of rugby, isn't it? Let me know.
Sexton, wonderful pass and Stockdale finishes.
There'll be more than grenades. There'll be full tanks and full shells landing on the Aviva.
Grand Slam winners on St Patrick's Day at Twickenham.
And you're very welcome along. It is Wednesday night rugby. This is Johnny Ward. I'm with Rory O'Connor, who is in studio, and former Irish legend Fiona Steed is on the line. Rory, I think the Clancy brothers would be very proud of your clobber there.
Do we best, Johnny?
Yeah, it's a beautiful
cold outside.
Weather. It is cold outside. Just watching Anfield here, there's actually snow on the pitch, and it looks quite deep. Can we say there's been a goal?
There's a goal.
We can say there's been a goal. Yeah. Liverpool have taken a very, very early lead in the big game, and I think it's Sadio Mane, a very straightforward shot from the edge of the box. Yes, indeed, he's kissing the actual snow-covered turf, and he looks very, very happy with himself. And it's like it's white all over on the ground around the penalty box. Mane, quick turn, pass it into the bottom corner. Any doubts about Liverpool doing the job against Leicester on the back of Manchester City's mad result tonight certainly are parked for the time being. Big goal at Anfield, and we'll update you as the show goes on. But this is the Rugby Show, Rud, and if you are a rugby man, you must be pretty excited about things right now.
Yeah, man or woman, this is the most wonderful time of the year. Keep the snow metaphors going. It's pretty, it's pretty grim.
Snow metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. It's a grim time of year, around the place. But the rugby generally lifts the mood a little bit. And this week is the week where everyone believes that they can go on and do things in the Six Nations. It's a World Cup year, which frames everything. But even within that World Cup year, the Six Nations still has its place. It's still an important place. And the joy that people got out of Ireland winning the Grand Slam last year, the last gasp win in Paris, right through to that phenomenal performance in Twickenham. I suppose everyone in Ireland is looking forward to seeing if Ireland can get back up to those heights again. So it's a time that everyone looks forward to with great anticipation, and you're approaching the start line thinking, Ireland can do it this year.
How are you keeping, Fiona?
I'm good. Rory had a good save there with whether it's man or woman. You need to up your game a little bit there,
Oh God, we're into this already. It was just it was a slip of the tongue. I'm primarily a racing journalist, and pretty much in racing it's probably the most egalitarian sport in the world. So I can't take accused of that at all, But of course, Ireland and England, the ladies' game on Friday night at 5 o'clock as well, Fiona. I don't know, it just doesn't seem quite right that a game of that magnitude should be on a Friday at 5 o'clock in Donnybrook as well, where obviously traffic's going to be fairly chaotic.
Yeah, I suppose from a broadcasting perspective, they're doing a double header with the 20s, and I suppose that's the scheduling piece. 5 o'clock is a little early, but what better reason to take a couple of hours off work and finish early and get along to Donnybrook to support the girls and to see, some top class internationals on both sides going head to head. So, we all have time, and it's just, it's what you do with your time. And if people could take a couple of hours off and head to Donnybrook, they won't be disappointed, and then they could head on to the Legends game after that, couldn't they? So.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk about that game more in the second half of the Rugby Show. But just, Fiona, what do you make of the news, or certainly the rumour that Robbie Henshaw could be starting at 15? That was probably the big story on the beat today in rugby circles, and it's something that has certainly prompted a lot of debate.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And I certainly didn't see it coming, and he hasn't played at 15 for quite a while, really. Obviously, he did it quite a bit at Connacht. But I can see the value in it. Obviously, Rob Kearney, hasn't had as much game time of late, and maybe Joe is just, I suppose, looking at his options around the fullback place. It's now he could also be, playing a fast one or pulling a dummy or whatever, but it's certainly, I wouldn't have any fears with him there. I think it allows you to get perhaps more attacking players onto the pitch while still having, real solidity at the back.
What do you make of it, Rod? Is it a potential ruse?
I hope not, because my name is on the story. Is on one of the stories that put it out there. No, I'm pretty confident that the information is solid. It's an interesting one. It's really interesting. I think it's something that Joe Schmidt has had on his mind for some time.
Putting Henshaw fullback
at some stage, yeah. So in 2017 he lost. He pretty much knew he was losing Jarrod Payne to retirement, and he knew that Simon Zebo was gone to France and was thus ruling himself out of the equation. And while Rob Kearney has been an unbelievable servant who always delivers for Ireland, he wasn't sure what he had underneath that in terms of fullback options. Now he has good players. He's Jordan Larmour, who's come through in the last year. He's Will Addison, who primarily plays at centre for Ulster, but is able to cover fullback well. He's Andrew Conway, again plays mostly on the wing for Munster, but is an accomplished fullback. So he doesn't get many opportunities to try it. And he tried. I think he put Henshaw on the bench against Fiji in 2017 November. And the way the game went, he couldn't bring him on there. Joey Carbery got injured. They needed to win the game. He put him on in the centre. There was some talk that during the November internationals he was going to get a run there as well, but he pulled his hamstring. And I guess at this stage you've got 5 games in the Six Nations that are competitive until the World Cup, because the World Cup warm-up games are warm-ups and they're not. They will be mixed and matching, but it doesn't count for much. And Joe Schmidt is in his final year. He's won the Grand Slam. He's won 2 Six Nations apart from that Grand Slam. 3 in total. So while he wants to win this and spring into the World Cup from this, he at the same time probably doesn't have the pressure on him from the IRFU perspective about winning it, that he's not going to throw it by any means. And I don't think this decision means he's going to throw it, but I think he's got a little bit of freedom in which to experiment, and this is a huge experiment to put in, because for all that Kearney has played very little rugby, Henshaw's played less since November.
That hasn't been actually made much of a point of it all.
Yeah, so Henshaw came back, played 60 minutes for Leinster against Wasps, played really, really well, and is the kind of player who generally comes back and hits the ground running. But he's had an injury hit year. He's clearly able to do it at a certain level, and I believe that he will be able to do it on Saturday. I think he is more than capable of stepping up to the mark. He's a really accomplished rugby player in every part of the game, but we've never seen him. He's played he's won 1 cap for Ireland in the fullback role. That was in 2013. His debut as a 19-year-old against the United States. I was there over in Houston. It didn't go particularly well for him, but then he was a teenager making his debut, so it's pretty irrelevant now. So it's a massive decision.
What did you make of Kearney's performance Friday night? Because he was either rusty or he just didn't have a particularly good game.
No, he didn't, and he put his own hands up, I believe, and admitted that, and he missed a couple of tackles he shouldn't miss. But the one thing with Rob Kearney, he's always been able to bounce back into international level and perform. And Joe Schmidt tapped him on the shoulder on the way out to the pitch in Chicago in 2016 and said, "You need a big one out here today." His form hadn't been good. He'd had injuries, and yet he produced a really big performance that day. And I still think he's number 1 in the pecking order for the number 15 shirt. But if Henshaw goes well on Saturday, the 7-day turnaround to Scotland, he's the man in possession suddenly. And with Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose in the centre, Chris Farrell backing them up, Rob Kearney's in a bit of a bind. So it creates opportunities for Schmidt in terms of his selection, and gives him wiggle room in terms of being able to get all of his best players on the pitch. It creates depth. It's a rocket up Rob Kearney's backside that he hasn't had for some time, which Schmidt will expect a response. And if Rob Kearney gets better, that's good for Irish rugby as well. It's intriguing. It's made the whole week way more interesting, and it's already an interesting week.
If you say get his best players on the pitch, though, surely Joey Carbery should at least be in contention in theory for playing at 15.
Yeah, no, that's true. And but Joe Schmidt has even less depth, I think, at number 10, and number 10 is a very important position. So I think I think Carbery's role is definitely backup number 10, and he needs to get as much time on the training paddock as well as the pitch at number 10. And I think they've just gone. I think even after the World Cup, they might look at him at more, as an option there more. But right now, if Johnny Sexton goes down, Carbery's next man up, and they need to get time under his belt.
We have Brian O'Driscoll on now. Brian was talking about actually the Henshaw situation, where he sees this going forward, and it's just interesting to hear what he said.
No, because Bundy and Robbie played together in Connacht and were very effective. So Gary goes down. There's a flexibility of Robbie being able to play 12 and 13, 15 at a stretch.
That's always a culture. We've never seen it though.
Yeah, I think he likes 15 too. I think he's. If he had his way and he was the coach, he might enjoy a bit more time at 15. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that development. If after the World Cup Rob Kearney decides to move on, or whether the feeling is that there's time to invest in some of the younger players, Larmour or Conway or a position or an Addison or maybe Robbie Henshaw to try and fit your best players in, and that's what has to happen. Remember years ago, Shane Horgan, never played on the wing before in his life, and he got capped internationally as a winger and became a winger thereafter. Because it's just about getting your best ball players on the park, and when you've got 4 centres of the calibre of the ones we've mentioned, if you can have a positional switch where you can get 3 of those 4 on the pitch, and they'll do as good a job, well then why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Fiona, what's your call on this? And I suppose ultimately does it matter much in the sense of Ireland being such overwhelming favourites that who we play at full-back?
Well, no, I think it does. I mean, I think Rob Kearney has never let us down, and he's always been dependable. And I do, if right was right, he'd be there, and he'd be there right till the World Cup. But I don't think there's room for sentiment in this, or room for, okay, he's done well in the past, and I think he'll do well again. But obviously, maybe with injury and with game time, and then maybe not performing as well as he could in the last match, then, it's good to have other options. I think looking at the way Joe always sets up his teams, he does like somebody who's dependable at the back, as opposed to, Larmour, who absolutely could light up, any match, but, has been found wanting a little bit, defensively and that sort of thing. So I think it's a really, it's a good position to be in, to have the strength and depth that's been talked about there, to look at the different options. And you'd sort of be looking at who would be your first choice 12, 13 if everybody is fit, because we haven't really had that decision to make up to now, with Henshaw being injured and Ringwald's been injured before that, and there hasn't really been where you could say, well, this is our nailed on 12, 13, and I think that influence it is, and it's about the whole. It is about the whole of the back line. I wouldn't be putting Joey Carbery in at full back. I wouldn't be looking at him there. I mean, I think we need a genuine replacement for Sexton should anything happen, and at the moment then Carbery seems to be in pole position for that, and the whole reason that he went to Munster was to play at 10, and he's getting good game time there, and he's growing into the position. So I certainly wouldn't be messing around with him if certainly not before the World Cup.
What game time will he get during the Six Nations?
Sorry?
What game time will Joey Carbery get during the Six Nations, do you think?
Okay, so what game time will he get, and what game time do I think he should get? So I'd be starting him against Scotland or Wales. That's what I think should happen, and definitely Italy, to see can he produce it. Because I suppose in the last World Cup, and I go on about it a lot, but one of the criticisms was that Madigan at the time hadn't had enough time at 10. Well, you don't want to wait till the World Cup to get that. So I would certainly start him, and I'd like to see him starting one of the away games to see how he handles all of that.
Do you agree, Rod?
With Sexton on the bench. What time do I think he'll get? I think limited this weekend. I think after that, then it'll depend on how the games are going.
Yeah. I think Fiona has a point, and a very good point, and I think that Joe Schmidt has signalled that he's maybe going to do a bit more of experiment, that he's willing to make a few more bold calls with the ultimate goal of having the World squad ready. So I wouldn't be massively shocked if he was involved against Scotland next week. It probably depends on how they come out of this weekend. If you're going over there having lost England with needing to rescue something, then probably Johnny Sexton starts. But Joey Carbery has been superb for Munster. He's in excellent form.
He's shown just flashes. He's shown flashes of genius in some of his
games. Absolutely, and he needs the experience. And Schmidt, in fairness, threw him in the first test in Australia as well. So I don't think what Fiona's put out there is unrealistic. I think Schmidt, if things go right, and it is, he still wants to finish in the top half of the table. He wants to win it, obviously, but he wants a top 2 finish. He probably thinks he can achieve that while leaving Rob Kearney out of the England game, or leaving Johnny Sexton out of the game too. The only problem is that Sexton probably hasn't played. He hasn't played since that Munster game on December 29th. It depends on what's in his legs. So, I think that there's a need to get Carbery exposure, and I think that plan that Fiona's mapped out probably makes sense.
Get your rugby text, tweets and Facebook comments into us, and you could be named our Heineken Star Comment of the Week, and that would win yourself some Heineken goodies and a signed rugby ball, and we will announce the winner on Friday. So get your comments in now. I certainly love the comments of John Mitchell. I was reading your article in the Irish Defence Day, Road. I just thought he really stirred the pot here. Something to the effect that they're going to bore the shit out of us. That was it, yeah. And it was like... I don't know, was he actually, did he mean that, or was it like another snipe at Joe Schmidt from a Kiwi, or what was he just trying to stir the pot?
I think the opposition coaches over the years have routinely kind of made backhanded compliments in Ireland's direction, and I think it's always been about the way Ireland play, and really it shouldn't bother anyone in Ireland really how they play as long as they're winning. And to be honest, I've been at nearly every one of Ireland's games over the last during the Joe Schmidt era, and I've rarely not been entertained.
If you weren't Irish, would you have been entertained?
I would, yeah. No, they're usually dramatic. They're usually excellent in terms of their delivery of the skills of the game. Sometimes the team can be quite cold and clinical. They can go after a team's strengths ruthlessly, but. John Mitchell, they obviously think there's something to be gotten out of it. I don't know where they're trying to go into Ireland into playing a game that they don't want to play. I don't think Ireland will fall for that sort of thing. He did couch it in a load of compliments as well, and Ireland will say that he was being misquoted. Yeah. But it was, it's good clean fun to kick the week off, and makes life a little bit more interesting. It just puts a little bit more target on English backs, which is never a bad thing. Yeah, and
Fiona, what do we expect of England? Obviously there's been a lot of talk about just the physicality of the game from an Irish perspective, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that, and they're going in here as 3-1 outsiders or whatever it is against Ireland, which obviously historically would have been a complete aberration.
No, absolutely, and I think that's decent odds. You'd nearly chance it on it. But
are you suggesting we back England?
If they go with Farrell, Slade, Tulagi in their midfield, or if they go with Ford Farrell, as to if you have Farrell there at 10, you've got the traditional 10, 12, 13 axis, and I think that'll be really exciting and really interesting to see. Key for them is having Billy Vunipola back at 8. That he gives that physicality, but he's got amazing feet as well, and he's for a big man, he carries really, really well. He moves well when he's going into contact, and he'll give them the sort of go forward ball. So I suppose the setup will tell as to which way they're going to play. And you know what, they get sort of branded with the heavish, the bullish, the brutish, all of these terminologies, but there's a lot more subtlety in their game as well that I suppose is sometimes under-recognised and underappreciated, and all these mind games that are going on, they're great at throwing out the compliments and the backhanded compliments, but they're coming over here to win. I mean, I think the battle of the tight fives, when you look at, scrum time and everything else, two, great packs will be going at it. It's just going to be fantastic. It's one of those games that, you want to be at, you want to play in. And, I think they have a lot more, I suppose, up their sleeves, and sometimes people think that they're going to come over here and bash and try to bash. They're a lot more subtle than that, and Farrell has a huge amount of skills, depending on the hand, wrist, thumb injury being, you don't want your fly half having that sort of injury, but we're presuming that he'll be okay, and that he'll be able for it. So I think they have, I don't think we can say what way they'll come out, because they have all the skills, but again, it's the setup, isn't it? It's whether they go for a Farrell at 10 or whether they move him out one.
How do you call it, Rod?
The result? I think Ireland will do it. I think last I saw it was 9-point spread, which I think is massively generous in Ireland's favour. These games, I know last year Ireland were pretty comprehensive winners in Twickenham, and deservedly so. It was one of the best performances I've seen from an Ireland team. You're asking them to go out and do that again on having not played together since November, with players like Conor Murray's still a bit scratchy after coming back from his injury. Sexton hasn't played in more than a month. Now you've got Robbie Henshaw playing fullback. You've got very little depth in the second row with Byrne and Henderson both ruled out. There's a couple of risks, and also you bring Billy Vunipola back in, and his ability to attract defenders and also pass the ball. He's a really, really good player. He adds something special to what England can bring. So I think Ireland will win, but I think it'll be much closer than that 9 points. I think it'll be tight. I think the forecast is that it's going to be dry, but it's going to be very, very cold. I think it'll be one of those Ireland-England games that'll be pretty ugly, a bit of a war of attrition, but Ireland just have enough to get over the line.
Fiona, conversely, England would be pretty hot favourites on Friday night, and I guess this is billed as maybe England or France is probably going to win the tournament. But what can we expect from Ireland? Was there going to be an improvement from the November international as well, when they were actually pretty competitive for at least half the game?
They were competitive for half the game, and then England ran out, I think it was 37-15 or that, but they brought on, England brought on Katie Daly-McLean, their 100 caps, 10 to run the show. And England actually, I think, got one conversion out of 7 or something that day. So they weren't quite firing on all cylinders. But to be fair to Ireland, they have, they've progressed through the autumn internationals with, I suppose, trying, a few different combinations and that. A big ask for them Friday night. It really is. But what I suppose we'd be looking for is to see a game plan being executed, looking at them, attacking England with their strengths. Lauren Delaney, who's Irish qualified, plays for Waterloo in England. At fullback, she had a great autumn international, so she did, and then she started at fullback. Nicole Fowley from Gall Regions and Connacht is starting her first match at 10. She came on in the November, and she. There'll be a lot asked of her, and we're missing Lindsay Peat as well, who started, I think, the last 7 or 8 games at Loosehead. So a big ask for Laura Feely as well, starting up there. But to be fair, we've usually front up really well in terms of scrum and line out for them, and we've got a really good midfield. Michelle Claffey and Senny Nupu, who's world class in the. In the centres, and that it seems to be gelling together. So let's look for a performance against England. Let's see, can we get a little bit of a sense of where they're about and where their strengths are. It's a great opportunity for the wider public to see where we are, because last year was a rebuilding year. There was a lot of changes. There was a lot of new people brought in. At England, then they have they have, as I said, Katie Daly-McLean and Sarah Hunter both have over 100 caps. We don't have that. We have Claire Malloy at 7, who is world class, who would probably make her way into any team in the world, and Ciara Griffin, captain, at 8. So, and they're sort of, I suppose, the back row is then combined with Julie Short, who, she's only getting her second cap or that. So there's a little bit of inexperience, but they have a bit of inexperience in the back row. So it's going to be, hammer and tongs in terms of going at it. And, I'm hoping that Nicole Fowley, manages to, she's an excellent kicker in terms of out of hand, position. She's just really inexperienced, and, starting her first Six Nations game against England is a tough one, so I'm hoping that she gets good protection and good service to do that. Overall, for the Six Nations, France have been fantastic. They're just playing so well. They beat New Zealand in the autumn, which is huge for them. But then some of their players are gone to the Sevens in Sydney. Jessie Tremile, who was the World Player of the Year, she's over in Sydney this weekend. Are a couple of girls that could be playing for Ireland. So it's interesting all round, so it's going to be a tough ask for them, and I think they'll be looking for performance, and it'll be, I suppose, it'll be a great experience for them. But we need to start to see now this year a little bit of progression, a little bit of, I suppose, continuity, and some attacking play.
Leicester have just missed an absolute sitter against Liverpool. Is there a bit of motivation here for Adam Griggs just to say, English rugby is going really professional, we are the underdogs here, let's show that we can become something of an upstart, because they do look up against it just in terms of how strong England are.
It's just funny listening to Fiona. It strikes me it's almost similar to the men's team in the 90s when they were, there was players making debutants in Six Nations games, because there's just not that many opportunities for the women's team outside of these windows to blood the players, and it's just I wouldn't be following it as closely as Fiona, but it's just every time you hear a women's team announced, there's about 5 or 6 asterisks beside players' names because they're making their debut. There seems to be a huge turnover in players. It seems to be a very big struggle towards trying to get continuity, and I think what Griggs needs to do I think it's 2 years out from a World Cup, you know, a very different spot of the cycle to where the Ireland men's team are, is to try and just generate those some cohesion within the squad and the team, and build continuity in those kind of key areas towards that. So I think he may try and use that as a motivation against England, but I think he'll really be looking for performance. I mean, he's a highly rated coach who has clearly got his own ideas. He's putting his own stamp on the squad. You know, it is obviously a clear decision to move away from that team that won the Grand Slam and that beat New Zealand in 2014. Niamh Briggs, you know, is an experienced player who just can't seem to get into the squad at all. I think he's just looking for a performance on Friday. He wants the team to show against England what they can do. I don't think there's any great expectation on them to go and win. It's those away games that are key in the Six Nations. And the RFU's strategic report had or strategic plan for women's rugby had the top 3 finish as their goal for the Six Nations. I think a top 3 finish is what Adam Grigg said last week at the Six Nations launch, and that's what he's going for. And I think he's looking beyond those 2 home games. I guess the problem he has is that the games he's expected to win or he's hoping to win are all away from home, and that makes life a little bit more difficult for him. And
best of luck as well to Alison Miller. She's having her first return to the squad since suffering a horrific injury around about a year ago. And guys, thanks a million for coming in and for coming on. Enjoy the weekend rugby.
Thanks, Johnny.
And thanks, Johnny.
Just a couple of texts as well. Certainly one at the top here. I think it's crazy to make England heavy favourites for this game. Any game between us and England is a 50-50 game. I don't think it's a 50-50 game, Sean, in Meath, but it may well be a lot shorter than the bookies suggest. We'll take some ads.
Wednesday night rugby on Off the Ball.
Phil Hay, the General Secretary of the INMO. Phil, the timing of your strike could hardly be worse given the uncertainty on the horizon with a possible hard Brexit.